Question.
There's this idea of cultivating merit in Buddhism. But there's also the saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so, what can you clarify what cultivating merit, what it means, doing it properly?
Good question.
Because at face value, you'd think like, okay, just doing good deeds, but obviousI blindly doing good deeds can have bad consequences, and so it seems that there's more to it than that.
Okay, good question. But now I'm not sure where you want me to focus, because the road to hell is different than merit, which is different than karma, which is different than good deeds. So be more specific, please.
Can you focus on merit to start?
I can tell you what little I know about it, which is that there were times in Buddhism when there was a degeneration of understanding in the Mahayana, I don't know about Theravada, in which people believed that just by merit alone, they could obtain a higher consciousness or something like that. Awakening, Kensho, Satori, whatever. Well, that of course is abused horribly. And like in the Catholic Church when they sold indulgences, so you could get rid of your sins by paying off the priest or giving the priest, it's called an indulgence, right? Well, people were doing, ritual things thinking that they were meritorious, and they were doing this in place of actually helping people, the poor, the sick, people in prison, kids, right? The injured, the maimed, things like that. So with regard to cultivating merit, it's very much subject to abuse. And although this notion of doing good or caring for the sick, the elderly, the imprisoned, the less fortunate, etc., so on and so forth, that's the minimum requirement for being a human being, right? And so it's really an academic question when we talk about it in terms of that. I know there were major reformations made in somewhere around the 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries with regard to that, because people were misusing it. And even in my day, among American Buddhists, if you want to call them that, and Japanese Buddhists who lived in America, there was just a misunderstanding of it, and they substituted ritual for content, for example, or just see, these things have a developmental function when they're used. Now I'm thinking about the merit of doing the nundro, right? Now that will work, all right, if you include that in merit. But see, that's there's so many different levels involved in that word merit. Go ahead.
I guess a level of understanding that I've had recently, and you can tell me if this is correct understanding, is that by applying this like at every level of your life, you kind of how do I say it? You basically make things easier on yourself and it
much easier on yourself. After all, you are yours. I mean, Jesus put it perfectly. What you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. Right? So when you see a homeless person or something like that, now that's not telling you what to do or what not to do, but that is the same as Jesus in reality. Now people are very, very far from reality, so they do all kinds of weird things, like they say rosaries for merit or to expunge sin. They do, they use malas and do, they say, I'm going to say, there's 1,000 ways to say Namo Amitabha. 1,000 ways to say Namo Amitabha. But if they're going to count, you have to have something behind it. And the same thing with like going to church or going to, to serve, to serve dinner to poor people on Thanksgiving because you're a good person, right?
Right.
Now the other 364 days, well, I can't get much virtue. I can't signal much virtue with that, right? And so, this is a problem across the ages, and so that's why it's a legitimate and good question. It's much better to be good in this world for the simple reason that you suffer less,
Right.
and so do the people around you. Now that doesn't mean, but like I've said so many times, wisdom without compassion is useless. Compassion without wisdom is blind. And yeah, you can hurt people with all your good intentions. It may not be what they need at that time. They may need the opposite. You don't give a ladder to a thief, right?
Right.
Follow up. Go ahead.
I guess, well, sometimes it's tricky. Like, and I'll give an example where there's a homeless, or someone who, let's say a homeless person who I encounter every now and then, and he'll often tell me the same story and ask for money.
Is money what he wants or what he needs?
Hard to say.
Well, if he's a drug addict or an alcoholic?
I don't know.
Well, why is he homeless?
I don't know. I guess I should ask him.
So then you're just flying blind, right? And you see people do this, and they'll hand money out like this. And there's been times in history where people were enjoying to do that, and so they hand the money, and they have no thought for the other person. They just want to discharge their obligation. So that's of no good to the person doing the gesture, and it may be harmful to the person to whom the gesture is done. So thoughtlessness is the enemy of this world, right? Ignorance is the root of hatred. So, we got plenty of that stuff going around, and contributing to it is not a good thing. Now, there's 1,000 ways to help people who are less fortunate, but help them for God's sake. Don't just make yourself feel better because you gave them, $5.
Right.
All right.
I guess in this example, it's pretty common now. Like, there's a lot of homeless, and for someone like me, I feel helpless, and like I had no idea in what way I could help, and so I realized that, like, well, if I just give money, that's not helpful either. But then also not doing anything doesn't feel helpful either, and so I'm kind of.
Well, doesn't that should signal something to a real person, right? So now, with a homeless person, you want to know, is this person mentally ill?
Mm-hmm.
Is this person an alcoholic? Is this person homeless because they can't find a job? Because they don't have any skills? Is this person a, what do you call it? Not obligate, but what's the opposite of obligate homelessness? They're homeless by choice? Or is this someone who is addicted to drugs? And you're going to kill them with more money and more drugs. So no one should even think about, if you're not willing to put that much thought into it, then you should not do anything. You should just walk right by and watch out for yourself and watch out for the society you're in. But we need work here, folks, and we've needed it for a very, very long time. And now that we've reached a crisis, now people are interested. But they're not really interested. So follow up. And people make their money doing this. I mean, California, there's a small industry built around helping the homeless, but what they're doing is enabling homelessness and drug addiction and sexual abuse and suicide. So that's insanity. That's just pure insanity. And so the first thing to do is not harm, right? First, do no harm. So it requires some thought to be a real human. And if it bothers you, good, it should.
Right.
I mean, and that means you've got a chance of being a normal human being. Follow up?
I don't think I have a follow up to that.
Okay.